Welcome to the Birth Lounge Podcast, an empowering space for expecting and new parents to hear candid conversations with experts, support your mental health, and learn the tips and tricks that thousands of parents have used to craft their ideal birth. We will answer all of your questions, the scary ones and the weird ones, to help calm your fears and feel confident going into your birth. I'm going to help you redefine what birth and motherhood looks like and how to embrace your journey. I've intentionally crafted a list of experts to help you navigate pregnancy, explore your birth options, and plan for postpartum so that it can be a time of soaking in your tiny human. We're going to go there on all the hard topics so that you can dive deep into finding your confidence and freeing yourself from fears around birth. With over 10 years of experience in family education and a master's degree in human development and family studies, I created this podcast as a way to share the resources parents need to make educated and informed decisions about their care in pregnancy and childbirth. This is a birth community driven by evidence-based information and research and hopes to help you explore your options, understand your rights, and know what choices you have along the way when it comes to birth and beyond. I'm your host, Hee Hee. Now let's get to the good stuff. Hello, have you heard about my completely free class that teaches you 6 evidence-based ways to avoid a C-section and reduce your tearing in labor by up to 50%? And remember, I mentioned it was completely free. This class is going to teach you how to advocate for your preferences in the birth room so that you can have a birth that's filled with joy and not birth trauma. Advocating for yourself starts with being empowered with the right information so that you can ask the right questions and confidently make decisions during labor based on what feels good to you and your baby. But here's the thing. The U.S. has one of the highest C-section rates in the world, and it is ever climbing year after year. And it's not because the system is broken, albeit it is, but it's really because women don't have the tools to navigate that broken system. We may not be able to change the system before you have your baby, but what we can do is change how you operate within that system. Change the conversations that you're having with your providers. Change the places that you are getting your information to help you have informed conversation with your doctor before you have your baby. I want to teach you how to do that. We know the reasons that our C-section rates are climbing. We know the reasons that inductions happen so often, and we know the reasons that babies end up in the NICU. I want to help you avoid all of that so that you can have a birth that you love. You can find my free class at thebirthlounge.com/C-section so that you can learn 6 evidence-based ways to avoid a C-section and reduce your tearing in labor. Again, that is thebirthlounge.com/C-section. See you there. Bye. Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of the Birth Lounge podcast. Today it's just me and you hanging out. There's no guests, no friends joining us. It's just you and I, baby. We're going to be talking about how you can find the right doula for yourself and your birth goals, and how can you find the person that you want to invite in to this precious space to help usher in your baby. It's a really, really big honor, and it's a huge responsibility. So making sure that you find the right person is key. There are a ton of things that you need to consider when thinking about a doula or hiring one, and that's what we're going to do in today's episode. So grab your pen and your paper, and I'm going to give you some actionable steps so that you can actually start yourself on your journey of finding your perfect doula. Okay, let's start with the best time to hire your doula. And I think this varies by probably region and accessibility and just how popular doulas are in your area. So if you're in a place where doulas are not that popular, you may not need to reach out as early. But I'm in Boston, and there are obviously so many people here, and there are only a limited number of doulas to serve those people. And so Our team's calendars are booked out for 6, 7 months. Most people with us are getting started by about that 12-week mark. I know for a lot of doulas, you should reach out in your second trimester. Definitely don't wait later than that. But if you're hearing this later in your pregnancy and you're like, oh my gosh, well, I'm already past my second trimester, it's okay. You should still reach out to the doulas in your area. And if they're full, they will probably have someone that they can recommend to you that might have the availability. And then if they don't, they can give you to the next person. And, you'll eventually find somebody. Um, or I guess maybe you won't. I'm not sure. This is also a really great pulse check in your area. So I would lean on your community. Ask your friends and your family and moms in your community and on your Facebook group. And each, little city or town or state should have or typically has like some sort of birth group or mom's group or crunchy mom's group or natural birth group or some sort of group that you can reach out to and ask and write in and say, I'm thinking about hiring a doula. When did you hire your doula and who do you love in this area? Obviously, the more local the group, the more targeted those answers will be, and they'll be right in your area. So definitely don't wait past your second trimester if you know about a doula before then. There are also different types of doulas. So, considering who you want to hire and who you want to be in your birth space is really important, I think, before you go searching for a doula. Your doula is somebody that is going to be in one of the most vulnerable spaces in your life. And also, simultaneously, one of the most transformational times in your life. And so, you want to make sure that this person is safe and that you trust them and that you know that when they show up, you can totally relax that they are there and know that they're going to keep you safe. You want to make sure that your personalities are similar and that you enjoy being around them, that being around them makes you feel supported and loved. Education is probably important as well. So make sure that you are hiring the type of doula that you want. So, for example, there are doulas that only attend home births. So, if you're birthing in the hospital, that doula would not be a good match for you. And vice versa. There's doulas that just do hospital births. Our team does both. We do a little bit of everything. But and some other doulas will do a little bit of everything. But make sure that you know about the education that they have and what's important to you and that those things are aligned, because if you have a doula who is really, really, really well versed in unmedicated birth, and that's primarily what they see, but you know that you want the epidural, you might want to consider hiring a different doula, because a doula that sees a lot of epidurals will know how to support that, will know how to help facilitate a medicated birth to help you still achieve your birth goals, right? I think in order to find your perfect match doula, you have to know two things about yourself and your expectations of the birth that you want to have. The first one is what is important to you. So, if you don't know the things that are important to you, then it'll be really hard for you to be able to narrow down the people that should be in that birth room, right? And the second thing is, what role do you want this person to play? So, in addition to there being different types of doulas and different types in terms of their education, there are different types in terms of the role that they play in the birth room as well. So, for example, I'm typically a very close but quiet doula, meaning I am never very far from you. The furthest I am ever from you, typically, if there's ever any sort of like true space between us, is you might be in the bathroom and I'm sitting right outside the door. But if you're in the bathtub, I'm sitting right there. If you are on the toilet, I'm probably behind you giving you a hip squeeze. If you're in the bed with a peanut ball between your knees, I'm sitting right at the bed, probably holding your hand and helping you through contractions. Now, sometimes your partner is doing those things or in those places. And in those scenarios, I'm literally right on the other side of them. I am never far. And I joke about it. I'm not ever crowding you, but I am always right there in the vicinity where when you look up, you don't have to search around for my face or my energy or my presence. You know, I am there. I am a constant. You are safe. You're safe to feel. You're safe to sound. You're safe to say. You are totally safe. And I'm right here to help you do whatever you need to do, whether that be speak up or think about your options, or change positions, or make a decision, or talk about something. I am right there. And then you have the doulas, and some of them are my really good friends, and we're just different people in the birth room. But then you have the doulas who they are across the room the whole time. They don't really they're not up in your space. They are not helping you through contractions, talking through contractions. They're literally just holding space for you. And if you need something, you will call them over and they will join you lickety split. It's not like they're not there and they're not present. They're there, absolutely. And they're paying attention and they are acutely tuned in to what is happening in that room. But they're also just giving you your space. They're just watching you jam. I mean, you're doing your thing, you don't need them. And they are simply there to protect that space and the energy around your birth. If you need something, they'll absolutely come and get you settled into your next stage and get you comfortable, but then they're going to retreat back to their place and where they are just quietly keeping your room grounded. Knowing the role that you want your doula to play is crucial because, again, you want to make sure that you are truly curating this environment that is handpicked, it's handcrafted for you because that's what you deserve. That's what you get. You get to do this because you are having the baby, and the people around you in your birth room should love you and support you and help you make this the best experience of your whole life. That's the goal with every single birth. Okay. There are a lot of benefits to having a doula, actually. A lot of people will say, I just don't know if I need a doula. I just am not sure that, you know, I I'm not sure I want to go unmedicated. I'm like, oh my gosh, if you're having an epidural, you probably need a doula more. Or, they'll say, oh, my nurses are really well trained. It's like, yep, they definitely are. Nurses, in my opinion, are one of the most undervalued but total MVPs of birth. They know so much. They want such good well being for their patients. And yet, the system holds them back in so many ways, whether it be, horizontal violence or hospital policies or regulations or licensure, whatever it might be, even unit politics. I find that nurses are often having their voice stifled, where if we really gave them a lot of freedom and authority, I think we would see a different birth culture almost immediately. I love labor and delivery nurses, but they are seeing more than one patient typically. So you might not be their only patient, especially for a time in labor. When your labor gets a little further in, so you're really in active labor, then you will probably have one-to-one support. But there's a period of time that you might be sharing your nurse with another person. And so having someone constantly with you that not only knows you, but intricately and intimately knows your birth goals. And, your doula knows your desires and they know your fears and they know the things that you want and don't want because you've been able to spend time with your doula before your birth. That is a very different dynamic than a nurse patient relationship. And having that constant support actually does have a ton of benefits. Now, AWON, which is the governing organization for nurses, does say that having constant RN support, so nurse support, is beneficial for patients. So we know that constant support in labor increases your chances of having better outcomes. Now, you might be thinking, well, of course, my partner is going to be with me. So that's the constant support. And that is absolutely true. The good thing with a doula, though, is that they are not your partner. So you don't have to worry about, that relationship, hurting your partner's feelings or not wanting to have them be part of something, i.e., you want to know if you're pushing well, but you don't want your partner to look down there. Your doula is perfect. You are having, loose bowels. You literally can't stop pooping and you don't want to be alone in the bathroom. Pooping in labor is totally normal. Having loose stools in labor is absolutely normal because of all the prostaglandins. But you may be kind of landlocked on the toilet, but you don't want your partner sitting there with you. A doula is perfect for that. We're so used to that. And again, let's go back to the scenario where you're sharing your nurse with somebody else. There's a time where your nurse has to leave. And so what will you do? Will you invite your partner in? Or will you just be by yourself? If you had a doula, that would be a great place to call her in and say, "Oh my gosh, I need someone to sit with me, but I'm so embarrassed because I'm having all of this poop." And she's going to say, "Okay, I'm used to that. Poop is so normal. Like, I'm not, let's go. Let's keep laboring. You relax until you have your next contraction. Let me know and I'll step you through it." And then there's that. Having a doula also decreases your risk of having a C section, decreases your risk of having unnecessary intervention, decreases your risk of having additional tearing, decreases your risk of experiencing birth trauma, decreases your risk for an unwanted epidural, and increases breastfeeding success. In addition to all of the benefits that it brings you, I find that your partner has just as much benefit. Not only do they have a teammate that they can tag out and tag in. So, again, with the nurse situation, we love our nurses, but they're not going to be able to give you that constant support so your partner can go sleep, right? And so, having someone that can give you that constant support because your nurse is charting, they are running around and doing all sorts of stuff. They are checking your vitals. They are checking your baby. They have so much computer work to do that it's literally impossible for them to be able to be 100% present in doing your pain relief. And so if your partner needs to sleep because you have had a longer labor, having a doula could be that person that they tag in to do that. It also just gives your partner this confidence. It is like, okay, we've got backup there, and we always have he to turn to and help or ask any questions or, assist us in advocating for ourselves, whatever it is. Your partner really has your partner has a partner. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Because if it's you that's laboring and then you have all this information and this education that you've done beforehand, how fair is it to really put it on your partner to remember every single thing? I always think that having a second person there to just bounce ideas off of, to just keep the energy grounded, and to just help your partner navigate this space that if you are first time parents, they've also never been in, you know, they've never been here before. And the good thing about a doula is most of the time they have been there before. And so that's really helpful to just have a guide for not only you, but like I say, for your partner too. Okay, so how do you go about finding a doula? Well, a couple of ways. First, I love the website doulamatch.net. So that's doula, Doula, match, match.net. And you can type in your city or your zip code and hit enter, and it will populate all of the doulas in your area that have refreshed their profile recently. So if you're a doula listening to this and you have a doula match and you don't update it at least once a week, you're not showing up in results. It's just, you're not. So make sure if you're a doula, you're going into your doula match profile and you are updating your availability as current. And then for parents, if you are using doula match to find a doula, That's what you need to know is the active doulas on there are the ones that are populated, and you can play around with the different area and zip codes around you to find the doulas. That does remind me something that I missed earlier, but each doula is going to have their service area and their catchment area of where they attend labors. Some doulas travel, like for example, I'll travel anywhere. Our team has been out of the country with people. We do at least a couple of travel bursts across the US each year. So be sure when you are looking into doulas in your area that they are people that will, in fact, come to your house and attend labors at your hospital. Okay, in terms of finding your doula in other places, so Doula Match is a great one. Your local Facebook group is another really great one. So again, that community resourcing is just who did you love, what kind of birth did you have, and how do I contact them, right? I have talked about this before, but when you source doulas or OBGYNs or midwives or childbirth educators or lactation consultants, anybody really, pediatricians, sleep consultants, literally anybody, chiropractors, acupuncturists, you should be asking about people's experiences, okay? Because if it goes right back to finding your perfect doula, we want to do the same thing with all the people in our life. If you are asking about who loves this pediatric clinic or what pediatrician do you love? And they just put a name, and come to find out this pediatrician is not aligned with you at all. And you could have found that out in the Facebook post by just simply asking, and what was your experience, right? And so when this person writes in and says, this was my experience and I loved it because of these reasons, and you read that and go, oh, I wouldn't like that at all, then you can know that is probably not a pediatrician, OBGYN, doula, midwife, sleep consultant, chiropractor that is aligned with me. The last place I would say is ask your OB. One of our top sources of referrals comes from OBGYNs and hospitals in the Boston area, actually, because we've just really prioritized having a really positive and mutual respect with and respectful, I guess, relationship with these hospitals, where these hospitals really enjoy seeing our team come through the doors, and we're recognized in these hospitals. I have a team too, so it's not just me, but people in the area know my team, and they know that we are going to make their job easier, that they are going to be able to be part of a really positive and intentional birth because they are working with someone who's really educated, and it's just so fun to walk into the hospitals and have people be like, oh my god, you're Lily Bahee, welcome back. And you know my team and I are like, "Hi, good to be back. See you in the room. See you in room 6." So just fun stuff. So check out your local moms group after doula match, and then also ask your OB or the front of the clinic that you have your clinic work done at. They often will have a list of doulas. A couple of questions that you can ask your doulas, which I recommend interviewing all doulas. I just recommend having an interview because the answers that you get from the questions that I'm going to give you, and also the banter that you have with this person, the energy, the connection, all of it, the feeling that you feel when you're on the phone with this person is going to be so telling in how you're going to jive in birth. And so I think something that is just so valuable, I mean, it is like irreplaceable, is interviewing your doula beforehand. And when you're on this interview, here are a couple of questions that you can ask your doula. So, first, what's included in your services? Do they attend the birth? Do they attend births at your hospital? What services are you getting in the package that you are purchasing, and what are the prices? Some doulas are only going to have one package. Some doulas are only going to have one service. And some doulas are going to have a wide variety of services and a wide variety of pricing. You're also probably going to notice a wide variety of pricing within the industry. So don't be surprised if one doula is only charging X amount and then you have the next doula and her price is 3 times the amount of the first doula. Doulas will price their packages how they see fit. And then you get to choose which doula best suits you and your goals and the outcome and the support that you want from your birth. You also probably want to ask them about other services as well. So some doulas are going to have again just one service. They just do birth and it's this is what's included and that's it. There's no add-ons and there's nothing additional. And then some doulas are going to say you can add this on and I also offer overnight care and we do postpartum support and maybe they are an IBCLC so they also do lactation support. It is again really up to each individual doula and then you finding the right doula for you to help be the best support that you need. Another interesting question that I think is really insightful to the care and level of service and maybe even level of attentiveness that you will get from each doula is asking how many other clients do you take in a month? Each doula is going to have their own number of clients that they take each month and their own rationale behind that. And I think hearing that from each doula would be really helpful for you to understand how they operate their business and what that might mean for the care that you're going to receive. Next, ask them about a backup or a partner. So, very rarely do we find doulas working all by themselves anymore. It did used to be like that. So, I entered the industry in 2016 and yeah, people oof, I don't know. I don't know how they did it. I really don't. I went to one birth. I went to one single hellaciously long birth and I decided never again. I would never do that. And so immediately I added someone to my team. And that was my very first business move. And it happened within 4 months of me starting my business because I just went to a birth and I thought immediately I won't be able to do this. So make sure that you understand how they run their business. So for my business, we don't have backups. You have a team of doulas that serve you. And we also don't run on an on-call schedule. So you have full access to all of your doulas at all times with our service. Some people are going to operate in a backup where they actually are your primary doula. And then if they're not able to attend your labor, they would send their backup. Another great question to piggyback off of that is do you get to meet the backup beforehand? Some doula services are going to have partners or a team of doulas like we do, but instead of you having 24-hour access to all doulas all the time, they might have an on call schedule. So in this first week, it's always this doula, and the second week of the month is always this doula, or they might have a different on call schedule, obviously, that they've created. But it may look like that. The good thing about hiring a doula is there's pretty much a flavor for everybody. And I love that. I think that finding your doula is as individual as finding like your wedding dress or your prom dress or your partner. It is just so important that you find the right one. And so knowing that there are so many options out there for me is really awesome and exhilarating and promising that there is actually a doula out there for everybody because I know people can say that and I have people sometimes that drop in and say like I couldn't find a doula in my area that I liked and I'm like, man, I hate that because I know somewhere out there is a doula that is a perfect match for you. I really really do believe that. Okay, next up is an interesting question, but it has come from my years of experience in also doing one-to-one calls for birth trauma. And that is interesting in itself because I hate to think about doulas as causing trauma, but sometimes it does happen. And I offer one-to-one consult calls for people who have questions about their birth. And it's not necessarily birth trauma, but as you can imagine, a lot of times it is. And This question is there anything that you wouldn't support or that would cause you to end care with me? I think that this is a great question for your OBGYN or midwife as well, whoever's attending your labor, but especially important for your doula because your doula, I think, is someone that you hire to be in your corner to support you no matter what. And if you come to a crossroads that you weren't expecting, that all of a sudden this doula is saying, well, I can't support that. So I don't know if we're going to be able to continue to work together. And you are either, you know, days away from having your baby, or maybe you're already showing signs of going into labor, or maybe you're 2 weeks past your due date and you are just already so anxious and in so much turmoil, emotional turmoil of like, what should I do? And now this is laid on you. It can definitely cause some trauma. And so, knowing that that has happened in the past to more people than I ever imagined I would ever hear about is a reason to ask that. And so, I think when you ask your doulas this and your OBs and midwives, pay attention to what they say, and if you have questions from that, ask them. You want to be prepared that if you start to get in a territory that might impact the care that you're going to receive, that is something you want to be prepared for so that you can have a backup plan or you will know how to navigate it. Or maybe it will inform your choices as you get closer and closer to whatever that scenario is so that you can completely avoid it. Next up is something that is important to me, and it may not be important to you. And so you can take it or leave it. But that is, are you a registered business and do you have business insurance? Now, for me, if you are having a money exchange and you are hiring this person, then they are running a business operation. And I am a rule follower until I'm not. And I believe that businesses should be registered. I think you should be a registered business. And I think that if you're going to be in someone's medical experience, so I consider doulas like medical adjacent. We're not medical, but we are literally in the middle of medical scenarios and experiences all the time. I think you should have insurance. And that is just a me thing. That is just a me being a type A, anxious, be prepared for anything type of person. So if that's not important to you, then you can totally discard that one. But I always think that's just a good one to ask. Piggybacking off of that, you may want to ask if your doula takes insurance or is covered by any insurances. We don't work with any insurances, but we do take FSA and HSA dollars. So your doula may be covered under that or may be able to take your FSA and HSA health savings account money in order to pay for doula services. And then finally, here are my last few questions, and these are what I call scenario questions. And I encourage you that before you hop on the phone with your doulas, you think about a couple of scenarios that come to your mind. And they may be things that scare you, things that you want, things that you are unsure about, things that you have seen on Instagram and are wondering about. But I encourage you to have a couple of scenarios to ask how that doula would navigate or support that particular scenario. And it will sound like this. How do you feel about insert whatever it is? How would you support insert whatever it is? I'm planning insert whatever it is. How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts about that? How would you support me in that? And you also might ask them if they have seen the type of birth that you want. So, do you see a lot of unmedicated births? How many of your clients typically get an epidural? And that way it will give you a good sense of the type of births that this doula is, generally supporting and the type of knowledge base that they are probably bringing to your birth. Okay, you guys, that is the end of my list. I obviously am so biased on this topic, but I truly think a doula can be all of the game changing energy that you need in your birth. I think a doula can bring so much value and is so beneficial to not only you, but to your partner, to your medical team, and to your entire experience. It will lead to a more empowered birth experience, a more positive birth experience, and one that has better outcomes. I will see you in the next episode. Be sure to follow me on social media, and you can find me at Tranquility by Hee and at the.birth.lounge. Until next time, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for evidence based childbirth education and data driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye.